Hello! So I'm coming back at y'all with a new video. So basically, this video is going to be how to learn to play any instrument, really any instrument, and I'm going to be giving you guys 20 tips on how to learn to play any instrument basically. And these tips can really be applied to like whatever instrument you want to learn. Right now, I know how to play the piano, the guitar, and the clarinet. And I mean, I feel like everybody's learned how to play the recorder, but some instruments I want to learn how to play are the drums and the saxophone and the trumpet. These are the tips that I've basically used for like every single instrument that I have ever learned or have ever wanted to learn. And so I'm going to be sharing them with you guys today so that you all know how, what is the best way to be able to learn an instrument. So here we go. So to start off, for tip number one, I suggest you learn one instrument at a time. This is because when you first start out, even if you've like never played an instrument before, it's gonna be pretty overwhelming at first. You're gonna feel like you can't get anything right. You're gonna feel like you're like dumb and you can't learn how to like control your tone or like anything like that, and so it's just going to be hard even if you're learning how to play one instrument. And if you try to learn how to play multiple instruments at once, it's going to be even worse because you're going to have to learn how to play multiple instruments, and just one is pretty hard. So I think learning how to play one instrument at a time is probably the best way to get started. Tip number two, choose an instrument that you like to listen to, or one that you're always able to point out when you listen to a song. So I remember for me when I was little, I think when I was like 4 or 5, and I was on YouTube because, you know, I've been on YouTube for pretty much my whole entire life. The main videos that I would watch would be music videos, and I was always able to point out the piano. So like, whenever I would listen to a song, I would like, you know, hear the singer or whatever, but in the background I would always be like, oh, I hear piano. And I always thought it sounded so nice. And actually the song I'm Blue, you know, the I'm blue, da-ba-dee-da-ba-da, that song is the song that inspired me to start playing the piano because I just loved the piano in the background. I don't even know why. I would just be like, slowly, it's hard to just, yes, I'm blue. I was always blue, even at 4 years old, on YouTube, all the time. Tip number 3 is to know the basics of music theory. Now, there are multiple ways you can do this. Either like if you're in school right now, you could maybe take like a choir class or a music class or something like that. But basically what I'm talking about is like know what a staff is, what a quarter note is, what treble and bass clef are, because those can be applied to basically any instrument. So I think you should learn all of that first before you even pick up an instrument, because if you know that, then you know how to read music, and I think reading music is probably one of the most important parts unless you're able to play by ear, in which case, 1, you're lucky, and 2, you're lucky. Tip number 4, try before you buy. So basically what this means is, I think before you actually buy an instrument, or before you actually be like, I know I want to play that instrument, just that instrument, no other instrument, okay? I don't even want to look at I don't even want to look at a saxophone, okay? Don't even show me that. I think you should go to a music store, pick up an instrument, see how it feels, you know, just hold it, see if you're comfortable with playing it, see if you're able to like do things like that, because I know some people are better with their hands, so they'd be better with like a piano or like a guitar. Some people, like me, I thought that woodwind instruments were really interesting, so that's why I started playing the clarinet, and it was actually pretty fun. But the thing is, it's harder because you have to be able to control the amount of air that you blow into the clarinet. Some people just might not be as good at that as others. So that's why I think you should try out the instrument before you actually buy it, because then you might figure out that it's a more like conventional thing that you're not very good at. Tip number 5, if you're going to be buying your instrument from a store, ask someone in the store to help you find an instrument that you may like. So say you've already chosen your instrument, you want to learn how to play the piano. You should go to a music store and you should ask one of the clerks there to kind of lead the way as to what piano you should actually buy. because there are many different types of pianos, there are many different types of guitars, there are tons of different types of all of the categories of instruments. So just because you say I want to play the piano, it's like, okay, do you want like a keyboard to start out, or do you want like a stand-up piano, or do you just want like a grand piano? Like, more choices. Tip number 6, if you want an inexpensive instrument, then I think that you should try to find one secondhand. By secondhand, I mean try to find like a family member or maybe like a friend or someone that you know that might have an instrument in their house already. The guitar that I have that I've done a cover on before, I got that from a family friend, and I didn't have to pay for it, which I actually got pretty lucky about, because otherwise I would have had to buy a guitar for like $150 around, and I didn't really have $150 just lying around, but I was able to get that guitar from somebody who wasn't using it. So, you know, you could find an instrument like that if you want something inexpensive. Tip number 7, start taking lessons. Now, I know some people, you know, a lot of like musicians and artists, they'll be like,
yeah, no, I never took lessons. I taught myself how to play this instrument. Okay, I'm like a boss at everything. Okay, I'm skilled. I'm better than you.
Usually, I think taking lessons just makes things easier. For one, if you take lessons, I think that it really goes a lot faster. When you have to teach yourself, yeah, you're able to learn how to play like familiar songs and things like that, but you don't really learn that much about technique with your specific instrument or like theory and things like that. But when you take lessons, your teacher will make sure to teach you how to teach you the perfect technique, teach you all of the theory and things like that. So I think that's very valuable. Tip number 8, learn how to play all 8 notes inside of an octave on that instrument. So for me, since I had already done the tip before that I mentioned, which was to learn basic music theory, I knew all 8 notes inside of an octave, which are A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. It stops at G. There's no H. There's no I. It just stops at G, and it starts over. Just to let you know. But basically, for when I learned how to play the guitar, all I really had to do was just figure out which string played which notes, and then from then I was able to like figure out which fret to hold down, figure out like what string would play what notes in which octave, and then you could play chords, you could just pluck notes or whatever you want, and it just makes it a lot easier. If you don't really know much about music theory, then I feel like nothing that I just said would probably make any sense to you. That's okay. Tip number 9, always use good technique. When you first start out, you're probably, if you start learning lessons, your teacher's going to teach you how to use good technique, and even if you stop taking your lessons, you should still use that good technique, because it's always going to come in handy, and you're always going to end up needing to use it. I just feel like if you start practicing how to use good technique, then you're basically just always going to use good technique, and it's just going to be good. Tip number 10 is learn familiar songs. Now, I remember when I first started playing the piano, and my piano teacher would always give me classical music to play and songs that I didn't really know, and I thought it was really boring, even though it was probably really good for me. I still didn't want to play it, but I was like, I started playing more familiar songs, and it actually started to get a lot more fun. So what I think you should do is, not only should you be playing those classical songs because it teaches you really good technique, but you should also maybe add in like a familiar song or two that you want to learn how to play. So maybe you want to learn how to play Mozart, and you also want to learn how to play Ed Sheeran. It's chill. Do what you want. Tip number 11, practice regularly. But don't just practice regularly, also practice with accuracy. I know everybody's just like, yes, you have to practice, even if you don't get it right, just keep practicing. I think that the first time you practice, if you get it wrong, you need to just keep practicing until you get it right, and then once you get it right, practice it right at least 10 times. This is because even if you practice, yeah, you could just be practicing all day if you want to, but if you're practicing the wrong way or practicing it wrong, then it's basically just useless because you're practicing it wrong. So you're not really practicing with accuracy, and I think that's really important because you're going to want to get that right. 12, find somewhere quiet to practice. This is pretty self-explanatory. When you're first learning an instrument, you're gonna want to hear what you're doing. You're not gonna want to be practicing in the kitchen where everybody's yelling, in the living room where the TV's on, in one of your brother's rooms where there's a bunch of noise. Like, no. Either go into an empty room where there's no noise, go into the basement where there's no noise, or go somewhere where there's no noise so that you're able to focus on what you're doing and you're able to hear yourself and know what you're doing. Tip number 13. Be patient with your skills. This is a big one because when you first start playing, you're gonna want to be Mozart when you first start. You're gonna be like,
okay, listen here, I just sat down, I'm picking up this instrument, and I literally, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to start playing stadiums, playing gigs, start a band, and I don't know why everybody's tripping. I'm ready for this.
No, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna mess up, and you're gonna get annoyed, and you're gonna just wanna smash your guitar on the ground, throw your piano across the room, literally take your clarinet and smash it up against it. But you're not gonna do that though, because you're gonna have patience, okay? You're gonna chill out, you're gonna start over, you're gonna get it right. This is gonna be good. Tip number 14. Look at the long run for your instrument and your music skills in general. What do you want to end up doing? Do you want to inspire others? Do you want to end up being a performer? Do you want to end up being a musician? Do you want to sign like a record deal? Do you want to start a band? Like, what do you want to do? Figure out what you want in the long run so that you can prepare for that now. That way you're not just really just playing your instrument and then you're eventually just going to get bored and never pick it up again because you never really had a plan in the first place. Tip 15. Have a friend or family member sit and listen to you while you're playing. I think this is important because when you're learning an instrument, not only are you going to want to have like good technique or theory or whatever, but you're also going to want to have good performance skills. And at the music school that I went to, they always made that a really big deal. They were like, yes, you also need to have good performance skills. You need to know how to perform in front of people, not get nervous, not freak out, not throw up, because that's pretty nasty and nobody want to see that. You should have like a friend just sit down and listen to you, or maybe have your family sit down and listen to you while you play, even if you're playing something small like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Like, yes girl, turn that up. You know I want to hear that Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, okay? That's my jam. Turn that up. I'm trying to hear that. Tip 16. Find other people around you who share similar music interests and maybe start a band. I've never actually done this, but I've been wanting to do this for a while because not only can you guys like work together to get better at your instruments, but you can also like play gigs, practice on your performance skills, and learn how to just work together as a team. Because you know in school they always be teaching y'all, yeah, you need to learn how to work together as a team. That's working together as a team and doing something you really like. So it's a win-win situation, okay? Tip 17. Practice playing without looking at your hands. Pretty much any instrument you do, even if you're like blowing, you're gonna be using your hands. So what you want to do is you want to practice without staring at your hands. So if you're playing the piano, try playing while looking forward or even like closing your eyes, because it really helps. Because even if you want to end up like performing and like singing while you're playing, you're not gonna be like when the mic is up here. You're gonna want to look up so that you can play while you're singing into the mic. So it's good to just get that practice to not be staring at your hands. Even if you're playing like the clarinet, you're gonna want to like look up and not just be staring at your hands the whole entire time. Tip 18. Like I mentioned in the last tip, you might end up singing while you're playing your instrument if you play like the piano or the guitar. So practice singing while you play. You don't have to do all of it at the same time, like not looking at your hands and also singing. But you're gonna want to practice singing while you play, so that way you can get the rhythm right, you get the beat right, and you can just make sure that you know what you're doing. Tip 19. Update your gear. So at this point, you've already been playing for a while now, you're pretty good. So now you're just gonna want to update your stuff. Like if you have a keyboard, maybe invest in like a grand piano. If you have just like a classic guitar, maybe invest in an electric guitar if that's what you want. If you just have like a tiny little drum set, maybe invest in like a bigger drum set. Just do what you want, because you're gonna want to update to better stuff that's gonna help improve your playing so that you can end up, going to a higher level. And the last tip, tip number 20. share your skills with as many people as you can. So by this, I mean recording a video, maybe posting it to YouTube, maybe performing at your church, performing at like a talent show, performing wherever you can, so that you can not only share your skill and share what you've learned and feel proud of yourself for learning what you learned, but also inspire others to maybe want to pick up an instrument as well. That's it for this video, guys. If you want, comment down below any instruments that you guys play, because, you know, I want to know. Make sure to give this video a like and hit that subscribe button for more. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you enjoyed, and bye.